Good evening and welcome to the Minions of the Zoo Saturday night live stream 1231. With us tonight for the second time because we thought we were live earlier. It was a great show up until the point when I was told we weren't live. Sora Luna.
Good evening. Take
I know,
two.
just for take two. Dr. Functional.
I can't work under these conditions, Harry. This is impossible. I'll be in my trailer. Hi.
And yeah, and I guess your mom is probably your manager too. Prospero.
Hello.
Jenna.
Hi. Again.
Actually, that's perfect. I think you did it exactly the same way both times. I really appreciate that. Serenity Star 13.
Functional's being a whiny baby bitch, and hello, everybody.
And Skep Tock.
Hi, everybody.
Well, I've already asked the question
Bitch.
if anybody has anything they need to talk about, and there really wasn't a whole lot. You sure you guys don't need to unburden yourselves, talk about your day, your week, your month?
Well,
Before
I
we get
had
Functional was
started?
gonna nerd out.
Oh, God. Everybody at once. Let's go again. Whee!
Okay, who was first there? Jenna, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, my cold is turning into a chest issue.
Oh, that sounds great.
That ain't too good.
No, just
Yeah.
lots of sleep. And Serenity, you were saying?
Oh, I killed my entire player group in D&D. Unintentionally.
now.
Congrats.
That
Excellent.
is good. Can you give us a 30-second explanation of exactly how you ended them all?
There's a module for D&D called Out of the Abyss. They were in a part of it called Garhlstug. They went underneath in the mines. There's a part of it where it's sub rules where if you open any kind of portal, teleport, or anything like that, it opens a portal and brings more monsters in. One of the idiots opened a portal. They let more monsters in, so they went from fighting 3 things to fighting 2 gigantic. For people who play D&D, CR4 when they were level 4s, and they died.
Yes, they did.
So there you go.
That is excellent. Speaking of things that died, Mr. Yes is asking, is there a Nigel update? Well, I think we can say fairly safely that Nigel is dead. Only because Nigel has been missing for about 2 weeks now, which makes me think that Nigel finally slipped off his mortal coil and decided to stop bothering
He has
me.
joined the choir invisible.
The choir eternal. Even if I
He is
did
an
put him in the ratapult, that
rodent.
wouldn't.
Aw.
So I think
Personally-
Nigel is a thing of the past.
I personally think he's up there plotting your murder.
Mm-hmm.
He has papers. He's totally Macaulay Culkin, Home Alone, your demise.
All rats go to heaven. I saw the movie.
I think, honestly, he just ran out of food and or water. I'm not sure I can really take credit for doing anything other than trapping him and removing all of his food sources. But whatever it takes. I'm just really happy because when I walk out into the garage now, I don't think, am I alone or is something going to develop a taste for blood and come at me? No, I'm really happy to not have that creature rummaging around in my garage anymore. It feels really good to say I have a rat-free garage. It seems like a pretty low bar to set, but it's a big deal if you've ever had to deal with this nonsense. So, Nigel is officially dead, and I have actually removed the Nigel-related rules from the drinking game banners that I have ready, because if there's another Nigel, I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't think I'm going to take it well.
There's no nest of nigglings up there?
No, I think it's going to go. I think it's going to go poorly for whatever shows up. It's going to be just like you just screw it. I'm just going to put glue traps all over the garage, on the walls, on the ceiling, on the floor. Anything that moves is going to get stuck. That's just. Yeah, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not in the mood. It's not going to happen. So, anybody else have anything? Sounds like a resounding no. Well, I feel like crap, as evidenced by the fact that I thought the show was running, but it actually wasn't. We had what we were talking for, what, about 5 minutes?
I don't even think it was that long, really.
Like
It was
for
about
about
what do I
2.5. Because I was looking at the clock and I was like, shouldn't. And I know there's a delay, but this is a little ridiculous.
It is a little ridiculous. So, but I do like that opening music, so we got to hear it twice. That was good.
Mhm.
So 3 of us here have had the COVID vaccine. I got mine yesterday, so I'm just into that. I'm starting to feel slightly awful phase. And it's not particularly terrible. I thought it might be interesting to kind of compare the 3 experiences. We're not going to spend the whole show talking about it, but just I was going to tell you a little bit about what mine was, and then maybe Sora and Skep can talk about how theirs was, because I'm pretty sure it was very, very different. I found an opening at a local university, and because it occurred to me that where would I be able to get a shot? You know, because there just aren't enough shots to go around. Where could I get one? I thought, how about a place that has vaccine, but is full of very young people who don't need vaccine? And so I thought, perfect. I will find like a university or a college or something and check that out. And that hunch actually worked out beautifully. Not only did I find like an opening, I could have scheduled any time I wanted throughout the day. There were tons of openings. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I definitely have to do this. And I called them up and they said, yeah, you're essential enough. You can get a shot. I go, fantastic. So I show up there in my car and, roll down the windows, and they ask me about 5 times what my name is and why I'm there and if I have an appointment. And then they give me the jab and I wait 15 minutes and leave. Never got out of the car. I mean, it was an absolutely beautiful day. The sky was blue, the breeze was clean, the birds were chirping, and it was about as painless an experience as you can imagine. I hardly even felt the injection. It was nothing. This guy was such a pro. I mean, I've been bitten by insects that have hurt much, much more than this. It was the easiest thing ever. So, I mean, 5-star experience. I recommend. As I went to leave, the person at the last gate, as I was basically turning out of this parking lot, as I go through this maze here, said one word to me. Can you guess what that word was, anybody? It was congratulations.
Why is your first name THUR?
Oh, God.
It was congratulations. And it was like, did I just win a prize? Because that just seemed like a really odd word. And it's almost
Did you get
like
the golden ticket?
Yeah, it's kind of
Wait,
like they realize that it's kind of a joke because there aren't enough shots to go around, and if you got one, it basically means you kind of like won a prize. Like, woo!
He really said congratulations. You're
He
not
said
joking.
congratulations, and it just struck me as being the oddest thing. Congratulations on, I mean, it's not inaccurate, but I just thought it was really funny. So, Sora, what was your experience like, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, our head sort of medical director suddenly got an email saying that they are, for the week that I got it, people in my level, like medical office assistants, people working close with doctors, that kind of stuff, were eligible. And there was a link. And so you had to click through that link only. You had to register in this particular site that does the scheduling. And then you sort of had to then go through the 6 locations that offered the vaccine and just click through refresh. And then you click the first availability and they would pop randomly. First availability, I did mine in a hospital and went in same day. It was only that week that it was opened for, I guess, my group of people. So, and that was on a Wednesday. And he supposedly was supposed to get that email on the Friday previously so that on Monday we would be able to sign up. But he only received it that morning, which was halfway through the week. So just to let you know how organized they are. And so anyway, I went in same day to the hospital, had to go down into the basement. There's no signs anywhere. There's no notifications, nothing about there's any COVID vaccines on the premises. you are directed to go to security. Security checks you in. Security takes you to the staircase that goes down to the basement, and then you're on your own. And yeah, and I went to a table that said first dose. That was the only indication. Went through, signed, gave my information. They didn't ask for my ID. They didn't ask for my care card number. They didn't ask. The only thing they asked was for my name to make sure I was on their timetable. I was, and I went in, got my shot.
Me too.
And I left.
I didn't show them any of the paperwork saying that I was essential. I didn't show them any kind of identification. And honestly, they sort of didn't particularly seem to care all that much. I could have just...
No.
It's very much on the honor system.
Yeah, they were asked what did I do, because they needed to collect for data. So they're like, we're just interested in like the sector you work in. They didn't need to know the exact place. I brought with me proof of employment and current pay bill, or just past pay slip, just in case. To prove that I'm actively working in a medical setting. But no, they didn't care.
I had all sorts of stuff with me, and they didn't care.
Sir, you sound
Serenity?
terrifying, though.
Oh, yeah, it was so creepy because I went through an area that you're not supposed to access if you're not working at the hospital. And I'm like, I've seen a horror movie where someone dies in this hallway. Like, because it's an old building.
Go walk down
that's in the Dresden
hallway
files
all
where
by yourself.
Yeah.
In the Dresden files, that's where
flickering.
the ghost of the nurse caretaker is. Anyway, we know about that.
Agatha.
But
Yeah, Agatha.
no,
I've read this.
it was fine. It was great. I was disappointed though, because unlike my coworkers, where they went to a completely different facility to get theirs the next day, they actually got a card, like a official card, to prove, written down. All I got was the yellow carbon copy paper, at the back of the thing. That's the only proof I have. I don't have a card.
I got a card.
I don't have a card,
So-
and I'm like, this is bullshit.
Oh yes. So Skep,
It's like, I need a vaccination.
I don't know if Skep has talked about his experience on stream or not, but could you tell us a little bit about the Vogon administration way of doing this?
I'll give you the short version. I get my medical care from the Veterans Administration, there's a big VA hospital in Dallas, so that's where I went. And I had been scheduled to get my first shot in August, but I had put myself on the waiting list to be on the cancel list. And they called me about a week ago and said that I had made the cancellation waiting list, so I was now I was eligible to wait for cancellation. Then they called me up and said, we have a cancellation and you'll be able to come in and get your shot. When I got there, they told me that I showed up for the wrong cancellation, and but that I could go back on the waiting list for cancellations in 2 weeks. And I said, no, and I showed them the paper where they wrote down when my appointment was that they sent to me. And they said, well, she wrote it down wrong. And I said, okay, that should not be my problem. Okay. And admittedly, they had a lot of people. There was a line a mile long, people who were about 18 inches apart from each other. Make a long story short, I insisted that I said, let's talk to your boss. And if necessary, we'll talk to the command duty officer, and we'll talk to whoever we need to get the horsepower for you to help me out today. And she was like, no, I just want you to go away. I want you out of my life, and I was not going to go away. And then I started videotaping it. I actually have some video, and they asked me to stop filming, but I made sure that they knew that I was going to be the biggest pain in the ass you've ever seen in your life. And so anyway, make a long story short, they said, okay, we'll see you. And she was furious that her boss overruled her. And, she was like spitting bullets, not polite at all. And, writing down the appointments and so forth. But anyway, writing out the slip for me to get the shot that day, and then to come in 3 weeks later, which is this coming Tuesday, to get my second shot. So I from then on, it was just standing in line with people 18 inches from each other, not, nothing even close to social distancing, and waited in that line for half an hour, and got to a cubicle where there was a lady, and she said, "What shot are you going to get?" I was like, so I could get the second shot today. If that's all I would have to say. She has no clue as to what I'm supposed to get. And I looked at my slip, and it says I'm supposed to get the first shot, and I haven't had any shots yet. And she said, "Oh, you're supposed to get the first one then." And I could see I was dealing with a superior intellect here. And yeah, I mean, she pumps at people full of hypodermic juice for a living, and I don't know what I was expecting. So anyway, make a long story short, she did a good job on the injection, and it was painless, as Harry described. It was absolutely painless. And I walked out with only a sneer from the reception lady, who was back in charge of her little kingdom. And I go back there Tuesday. Then in terms of effects of it, I started feeling bad about, I would say 8 or 10, really starting to feel bad 8 or 10 hours later. And for about most of a 24-hour day, I felt like I had a mild case of flu, which is to say I felt pretty bad. And I just lolled around in bed. And then the next day I was pretty fine. I was low on energy, but I'm also almost 70 years old, and built up energy the next day, and I was back to normal in 2-3 days.
Yeah, I'm
just
sort of. Well, mine's not really
amazing.
that bad. I will say that I had some soreness at the injection site, but really not enough to get all worked up about. And I woke up this morning feeling, I feel a little more tired than usual. I think a nap sounds like it is in my future. And I ended up taking a nap, and generally just kind of being low energy. I think I described it to most people as on the energy level, the meter. I'm at Jeb. Jeb is about my energy level today. And I'm just starting to notice at about the...
Not to the level 30, of Lamar.
No. I'm starting to sort of feel kind of clammy and cold and chilly and, not great, but it's really just not that big a deal. It's hardly even worth whinging about, other than the fact that I feel slightly, mildly terrible, and, I'll live. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Did you have any problems at all, Sora? Because you're the youngest of us by far.
No, the injection site was just a tiny bit sore for like a day and a bit, or like the rest of that afternoon, sort of like a bruise, but I didn't notice it the next day. But that afternoon after work, I sort of sat down on the couch. I was just going to I'll think something for dinner, and then I passed out. I just passed out for, I don't know, 2-3 hours, and then I woke up again. I was like, what the hell? And the next day, nothing.
Yeah, I'm hoping that tomorrow it'll be nothing. But anyway, I just thought it was kind of interesting, because I expected we'd have 3 very different experiences. And yeah, I wasn't wrong. It was 3 very different experiences. A lot of people are going to be getting it soon, because the Johnson & Johnson is going to be at pharmacies. Pretty soon you'll be able to just go to the pharmacy and get the jab. And I mentioned this to some friends who said they were interested, that there's a waiting list at some of the pharmacies now. And they're like, I don't want the Johnson & Johnson one. It's not very effective. I want one of the good ones. And I'm just sitting here thinking, man, to get a vaccine that's 70% effective, that's like a dream for most things, isn't it?
Yeah.
That 70% is huge. And they start talking to me about how transmissible it is in the R0s and how it's not good enough. It's like, it's only not good enough because we just happen to luck out and have ones that are way better. By any, if this was measles or whooping cough or anything else, we'd be like, yeah, 70%, give me the jab. I just feel like we're maybe a little too spoiled all of a sudden.
Oh, Harry, I think I may have missed it, but which type did you get?
I got the Pfizer.
Oh,
Same as me.
cool. We're the Pfizer club.
Yep. And
Yes.
he had the Moderna, and he had no symptoms at all.
My grandma got
good.
AstraZeneca, and she was fine. She only had a bit of a sore arm, and that's it.
I feel like we're talking about the makes of cars. Like, what one did you get?
Yeah.
Like, that's what it feels like. It's like you have the Honda.
Yeah.
The Honda's good. The Chevy sucks. I'm not actually saying that
get
about
one of
Chevys.
the-
I'm just saying.
Get one of the fast red ones. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. The Studebaker is out of date.
Don't touch the
Well-
Nova. The Nova ain't worth it. It's not good. Just,
So let's pivot from all this agreement and kumbaya nonsense to something I want to talk about. Not a news article, but a topic. So there's all this stuff in the news right now about them wanting to go after guns because Biden is such a loving, caring leader that he wants to stop the scourge of mass shootings. And I'm not talking about getting into is it a mass shooting or how many, because, you know, people like Steven Crowder have done more than enough on that. I'm not trying to get into that discussion necessarily. But we're also having a discussion about voting. And people are saying, oh, to vote, you shouldn't have to be a citizen or be 18 or have identification or just about anything. So they want to set this ridiculously low bar for voting and this ridiculously high bar for owning a gun. Now, voting is part of the Constitution, just like right up front. It's not even in the Bill of Rights. You know, you get to vote typically. And then the Second Amendment, you know, right at the beginning of the Bill of Rights, we have the right shall not be infringed to bear arms. And it seems to me that in a lot of ways, when you give the government authority to rule, they are being given sort of the sole right to exercise violence in the name of the state, to do whatever they do to enforce it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of see voting rights and gun rights as being very similar. And I don't see why you would have one standard for one and another standard for another. I mean, I understand there's practical considerations, but at the same time, I wouldn't want somebody to be able to fake voting any more than I would want them to be able to illegally buy a firearm without a background check. Am I making my point clear? I don't know if I'm communicating my point well.
Well, yeah, they can't even rationalize it. The difference between the two. In any sort of discourse I've seen on either and or both topics, they can't rationalize one without attacking their argument for the other. It's insanity.
Well, I mean, if we had the same, okay, so they have these things they want for gun control, right? You have to have a background check. We have to make sure we know who you are, make sure you're not a felon. You know, it'd be good to have a real address, maybe have a photo ID. Just
those are
have all
talking
those
points.
I know, but that's practically speaking, that's what you want for the gun thing.
But what they're after is a gun registry. They want names and serial numbers side by side. This person owns this gun, this gun, this gun. This person owns this gun, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what functionally that they're after at this moment. Everything else is basically a talking point because you guys do have to have background checks. You do have to show ID to purchase firearms in almost all cases. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I know it varies state to state, but those are some of the basics that are kind of universal across the nation.
Not in Texas at all. That's absolutely not true.
You don't need any of that for Texas.
No,
I could just walk in and be like, give me
I walked into my gun show. I bought my Glock at a gun show, my Glock 19, and I just walked in, plopped down my money, and the guy filled out a receipt and handed me the gun, and I left.
I've been told that's not possible.
Well,
even like Steven Crowder when he goes on his Second Amendment stuff. No, I understand.
My mom would be so proud.
Supposedly, I've been told there is no gun show loophole, and you're telling me there is a gun show loophole.
There was when I bought my Glock. Let's see, that was 2012. So I don't know if it's been closed since then, but
because one stark difference between the two countries, Canada and the United States, is here you have to have a firearms license.
Yeah,
which is akin to
there's no license or anything.
Yeah.
If you buy it from a gun dealer in Texas, then you have to go through a background check. But there's no background check at a gun show.
Right.
In Maine,
Also, you can also buy from a private citizen. For example, my cousin gave me an heirloom gun from my family. It actually belonged to my grandfather. And he said, he was raised in it's a long story anyway. Make a long story short, he said, Frank, I want you to have this. Take care of this. You own the heirloom 22 rifle that would, it's probably too frightening to shoot. It's in such bad shape. And he just gave it to me. So that, that is an unregistered transfer.
Okay, so but voting, they want you to be able to show up without ID and on the same day. There's no waiting period for voting. There's no period to basically vet that you are entitled to vote. I just have a real problem with this. In some sense, if they had the same requirements for gun ownership as they do voting and vice versa, I think I could almost live with that either way. But the disconnect between these two things is making my head hurt.
Yeah. I mean, it is to wonder. I mean, in Virginia, we have to go through background check, show ID, all that stuff. But it's a very quick process. I mean, just filling out the background check form is the thing that takes the time. Mm-hmm. And it's online. And so it's like, dig it. Doot. All right. So maybe a 30-minute process from start to finish.
Well, to give you an idea what my state is like, we literally don't require a state permit to require purchase. We don't require firearm registration. We don't require the owner to have a license. We don't require a license for concealed carry. Don't require a license for open carry. There are local restrictions. There's no assault weapon law. There's background checks, no, not required for private sales. We are fast and loose here.
Yeah, low population, very rural, heavy hunters.
Yeah, but it's funny because by all measures, everybody here should be bloody and dead by those laws. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, by their measures. But you look at a city like Chicago and a state like Illinois, and all the laws and all the hoopla, and it's constantly they just get them out in Illinois, as if in Illinois they are distributing guns like confetti. Most of the guns are purchased off the black market.
Yep.
And no amount of gun laws will ever stop that.
That's right.
It's prohibition should have taught us things, but it didn't. And
Chicago is prohibition with guns, don't you think?
Yeah, it is. And,
There's a sign and everything, isn't there? Gun-free zone.
Yeah. That always stops crime.
Oh, we can't rob anybody here. Look at that sign, Joe. You're right. Let's go down the street.
You've got 1 out of every 1,800 people in Baltimore stands a chance of being killed.
Every year.
Every
year.
The population there is under 600,000 now, and they had, as of the 29th of December of last year, 333 murders.
But those don't
most of those are not, I went and bought a gun and through a gun show loophole. They picked it up in a back alley. They're gangbanger murders, by and large, just like Chirac. Most of the killing in this town is the same, but they keep thinking, one more. It's like the pit that is education. One more law, $1 more trillion. One more law, $1 more trillion. It's
by their own metrics too. I would imagine a sizable chunk of that would be considered mass shootings. But do you ever hear about them?
Yeah, mass shootings.
Why?
4 people are involved, and I mean, how many gangbang shootings?
Multiple shooters. Yeah.
Actually, what you find is statistically, at about 3, there's a huge increase. That's why they use the 4 number is to keep the number of mass shootings artificially down. The problem's actually worse than what they report, but they fudge the statistics in order to do that. Ben Shapiro went into a big thing about that.
But
Sorry.
when people think mass shooting, they think Mandalay Bay, okay? They don't.
Yeah.
They're thinking. Last night, I watched Twitter get hysterical about the multiple people shot in Virginia Beach. Now, this is a little odd because it took place on fucking Atlantic Avenue, right behind all the hotels that are oceanfront, in an area where the main road comes in from the highway. It's a heavily trafficked area and is not known for this kind of nonsense. But there were, apparently when you drilled into it and once the screeching stopped, it was 3 separate incidences. One of the people, there were 2 people killed, 9 people shot, 9 or 10 people shot. A cop struck by a car. It was really charming. I mean, they had loads of people in custody, whether they were involved or not. I think they were just dragnetting. But there were 3 separate incidents. 5 will get to 10. Drug deal that went south, or bar fight, or 2 rival gangs ran into each other. It was a very, very warm day yesterday, and it's ahead of the tourist season. So that puts people on Atlantic Avenue, hanging out. There are bars at most of the restaurants. You know, people go sit on the beach and drink. And I expect to see this story just disappear. Because, I mean,
So can we get back to the voting part of it, though, a little bit?
Sorry.
Because I know the gun part's... No, don't be sorry. The gun part's the sexy part. Nobody likes talking about voting, total extreme voting, you know. I don't think there are a lot of videos of, like, you know, really hot-looking women voting like there are with hot women with guns. So, I mean, I know where the sex appeal is. But this... I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, I took my kid to protest the gun stuff." You know, he's like some anti-gun rally that he went to, and I said, "Oh, so you used your First Amendment right to argue against somebody else's Second Amendment right? Okay, that's good. That's the system in action." And you know, you can buy a gun in a back alley. How long till you can buy a mail-in ballot in the back alley?
They already do.
I was going to say.
I know. I want this to stop. I'd be perfectly. I don't want them to keep a database of all the guns that people have and the serial numbers and where they're located. And God forbid, what is it, $800 a year in insurance per gun? That's just the power to tax is the power to destroy. That is just that's just naked bullshit. That's all that is.
I do agree where Functional was going with it, which is this is just an excuse to build a database because most gun owners are
database.
It always has been. They've been arguing for this for the last 20 years.
Because they want to be able to build a database of who is more likely to not agree with what we're doing. We're going to go after these people.
With your Second Amendment rights, I disagree with it for you, but I also disagree with the Chicken Littles of the right saying, "Oh my God, that'll be the end of gun ownership." Well, no, because plenty of other countries, my own included, still have gun rights. We still have really, I hate to use the term good, but good numbers of gun ownership outside of the liberal metropolis that is southern Quebec and Ontario, and we're not under threat of having our guns seized. However, there are people like the Betos, like the what's her names, who would love to rob the common man of their gun while they sit behind a wall of protection who are armed to the teeth.
You cannot get a gun.
Now, but back to the voting, it does again, and I hate throwing this word out again, insane that voter ID is a boogeyman for them because like
all the people of color in Mexico can get voter IDs apparently. Because
You're not wrong.
They require voter ID.
Well,
so here it's like even if I don't show up to the polling place with my ID in hand, sorry, Jenna. If I have a piece of, say, mail from the government, like a tax return or a statement or something like that, I can show up to the polling station, say, yes, this is my name, this is my address. Wham bam, thank you, man. I got my vote in. Now, if I go to the polling station down the street and try that again, it'll go through. But once they tally the votes and see the names, that'll cause a red flag. And that's when there's going to be trouble for me, because then I could be under investigation for fraud. So the idea of it just seems natural to want to prove that you are a citizen and somebody who's registered to vote.
If you have a secret ballot, you have to basically make sure that the people who cast those ballots are allowed to cast those ballots, because after the fact, your options are extremely limited. But Jenna, you wanted to say something?
I was just repeating Biden's stupidity about how Black people can't vote because they don't know how to use or how to register for IDs or anything.
I don't know how to use
it's
computer,
stupid.
Miss Jenna.
The paternalism.
What is the Ari? What's his name? The filmmaker Ari something. I can't remember his name.
Well, the whole thing is ridiculous.
Ami Horowitz is the guy's name. I'm thinking of Ami Horowitz. Did a fantastic video where he basically talked to a bunch of liberals and said, what's the problem with voter ID? Oh, poor people can't necessarily find the DMV, or they might not have the internet and stuff. And then he goes to, I think, someplace in the Bronx or Harlem, and starts repeating back what some of these liberals, these white liberals, said. And they were like, what do you mean we don't have internet? I've got unlimited data on my phone. They're just like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Do you know where the DMV is? Yeah, it's 2 blocks down and 1 block over to the left. Why?
Stupid cracker.
Well, I really...
That one guy who was just laughing at the questions was just so adorable.
I really think with Trump, it started something where Black people of other races saw how stupid the liberals were and how much a lack of respect and a lack of their respect for their intelligence. It's as if they are treating them like they're toddlers and they need to direct them in this direction. And if you don't go that way, well then, as Biden said, you ain't Black.
Well, they're treating them, interestingly, like ignorant, illiterate property, which is like standard operating procedure for the Democrat Party going back to, I don't know, the 1830s.
Let me tell you a little story about a man named Jim.
Yeah. So the Democrats treat minority voters and Black voters in particular about the same way as Britney Spears' dad treats her.
Yes.
A conservatorship that's basically set up to exploit her money. Anyway,
the presumption,
or at least treat her like an infant, even though she's an adult.
The presumption of being able to direct all their behaviors and to ascribe to them this incredible childishness and inability to function in the adult world is,
the entire
I think it's deeply, deeply racist.
Yeah.
I think it is a horrible thing that is being done. I mean, look, the Republicans have overlooked the minority vote to their peril for years, and they've never seemed to know how to talk to people because they bought into the PC and the pussyfooting, which is what made Trump's approach so much more refreshing when he went to Detroit and said, hey, you've been fucked for the last 40 years, and these are the people that have been running it. Why not try something different, for crap's sakes? And which is enough to make people kind of go, rrr. We hadn't thought of it that way. They've always seen the power in Washington is being pitted against them as opposed to looking to their locality for holding them down, which is precisely what has been going on. It's vulgar. I mean, I have seen with my own eyes, even though Eufio thinks I'm lying about this, and I hope you're listening, you little shitbag.
Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't know his own ass from a hot rock.
I have,
Beautiful.
yeah, if he'd sober up, maybe he'd wise up. I have seen the grotesqueness of food for votes. I've seen, and I shit you not, this was in the late 80s or early 90s, and it made my teeth itch. Somebody was giving away fried chicken.
You're fucking kidding.
No, ma'am, I
I
am
could go
not.
for some fried chicken right now.
Yeah, was it Colonel Sanders?
And they were also
No, they're
bussing
smart.
in. They were also bussing in people whose moms had really old eggs, and taking them off the bus and telling them which lever to pull and to look at nothing else, just to go straight in and pull that upper right lever. I mean, I heard them doing this outside the polling place. And
Wow.
I was standing there with another person who worked elections, and I was like, aha, this is like clear violation. And she said, now try to prove it. And I said, yeah, I know. No, all of these people would magically disappear into the ether. And the individual was running for Commonwealth Attorney that was doing this. And this individual is as fundamentally corrupt a human being as you can name. He's been in and out of the news around here. His last escapade was knocking up an underage girl who worked for him.
Oh,
And then marrying her and making it all right. And her mama loved it. Her daddy wasn't too happy about it. But
Yeah, I wonder why.
yeah,
it's not an
and I wonder
HR
what
problem if you marry them, right?
Yeah, it's not interesting.
yeah.
I wonder what you could do to sort of stem that kind of corruption in the electoral system.
Well, that's the thing.
Oh,
like,
you've got. Go ahead. Go ahead. Serena.
Georgia, one of the I'll give you two guesses what her skin color is. Got arrested because she was beating on the door at the Georgia legislative because they passed a law that basically.
She was knocking on the governor's, the door to the governor's office.
No, she started there first, and then she went to where they were doing the where they were doing the vote and the press conference,
Well,
and she was told
They
they arrested her ass. Yeah.
I thought they arrested her outside of Kemp's office.
Nope.
How the hell
She
did
went
she-
there first, banged on his door. When someone said he's not there, she went down the hallway. Like I've read 2 or 3 different articles from a few different places that said that's what happened. But the key elements for the legislation that got passed in Georgia is new ID requirements, ban the practice of giving food or water to voters in line at polling station, give the legislator more power to take control of voting operations if problems are reported, limit the number of drop boxes, and shorten the early voting period for all runoff elections.
And they also cannot stop counting votes after
Yeah.
the fact.
They have to keep going unless it's like a fire is burning the entire building down. Even
Yeah,
then, I
that
said they'd
sounds
make
good
them
to
do
me.
it.
What's wrong with
d-
that law? That sounds like a great
They're
law.
very
It
upset
sounds
about
like a
the
fine
water.
law.
They're very, very upset about the water because you see apparently POC are not capable of bringing their own water with them. The other thing is if you streamline voting and if you have voter ID requirements, it's very, very easy to winnow out the people in line who don't have their IDs and say, look, go back, get it.
Or bring us something that's an ID worthy, like passport.
Well, whatever qualifies by state law.
Yeah.
And it, to make people more aware of where they are supposed to vote, so they don't keep going to the old place after they've moved.
Yep.
And you run into a lot of that. There are provisional ballots that are always available. The whole point is to try to make sure people exercise their franchise safely. I would put this to people about, you don't want somebody who has come in here and spoofed your social security number and name taking away your franchise. This
Yeah.
guarantees that can't happen. Or if they've been and voted, we got them. Because what they ought to do is have cameras set up.
Yeah. Well, it's
Oh,
like
they should
just in
definitely
the-
have cameras
Just
set
in the
up.
check-in area, because that way you've got them. You know that it is not the person in front of you.
Yep.
And you can let this person file a provisional ballot right then and there.
Yeah.
And
Well, let me put a bow on this, and we can move on to the next thing. I just want to say that I'm a lot more afraid of unregistered voters voting than I am of unregistered guns at this point, by leaps and bounds. Because in terms of the thing that will ruin your life, the government has a lot more power to do it than just one random idiot with a gun. The government will do it to all of us. The person with the gun, anyway,
Can be stopped.
Yeah, we have policies and things for that. And so the next topic is about a very large boat stuck in a canal. And I asked Sora to put some stuff together, and she has exceeded the mission brief by at least half, which is fantastic. So let me
Sit back in your hero tail, a tale of a mighty ship.
Okay, so let's let Sora talk. So there's a boat stuck in the Suez Canal, which is screwing up traffic. Yes, well, it's a ship. I shouldn't say boat. My grandfather's spinning in his grave right now. It's a mighty ship. And so I thought, instead of just saying those things, it might actually be worth looking at, well, what is the Suez Canal? Why is this actually important? And then after we talk about that for a little bit, Skep's going to talk, as the only person here with sort of practical experience, about how did this happen and what the hell can we do about it. But I'm going to give Sora the floor, and you just tell me what to display, and I'll ask questions if anything comes up.
Okie doke. All right. So I prepared a history presentation. Sorry if anyone falls asleep. I thought it would be best to start off with a bit of rough and dirty facts about the modern Suez Canal. In this picture that we'll be talking a little bit about later, you can just see sort of what it looks like now. So what is the beautiful Suez Canal? Well, it's like many canals, a man-made sea level waterway. It runs from the north and south across the Isthmus of Suez in Egypt. An isthmus is a word I can't say because I slur over it. It's a land bridge. It connects two large areas over an expanse of water, and usually is a great place to build the canal. Though surprisingly, a fun fact with the Suez Canal, they actually used not the smallest area to dig out the canal. It's actually one of the wider areas, but typically it's used because it's easier to make that passage there. Our canal here connects the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, and it separates the African and Asian continents. It's also become the shortest maritime route between Europe and Asia. All prior routes went around the southern tip of Africa, around the Cape of Good Hope, which unfortunately, as we'll learn in a little while, is something that ships actually have restarted to do, as they had to be turned away or change mid-route during this blockage, pardon me. So when did the modern canal begin construction? Well, it began in 1859, was completed 10 years later in 1869 by the Suez Canal Company, which was founded by the French diplomat Ferdinand Delahazed, along with support from the Khedive or the Viceroy Said Pasha, with later funding by Great Britain after they bought Egypt's shares in the canal. The canal extends approximately 193 kilometers or 120 miles. And a little bit of fun history. In 1882, during the Anglo-Egyptian War, Britain ended up holding physical control of the canal and Egypt. And so after the war, they decided that, you know what, we can't have this, so we need to do some sort of treaty agreement for trade. So on October 29th, in 1888, the Convention of Constantinople was signed to regulate the use of the canal. So the main article 1, stating that canal is now open to ships of all nations in peacetime and wartime. This convention was signed by the United Kingdom, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Spain, France, Italy, the Netherlands, the Russian Empire, and the Ottoman Empire. Of course, that didn't really work in practice later on, as passage was denied in war times in quite a few significant moments in history: World War I, World War II, the Suez Crisis of 56-57, and the Six-Day War, which was an Arab-Israeli war from June 5th to the 10th in 1967. Now, a bit more modern, container ships and oil tankers make the largest percentage of transit through this canal. And in sort of between 2014 and 2015, which you see on the left there in this picture, the new expansion of the canal began. So they kind of dug in a little bit deeper and then also created a new 22-mile channel in parallel to the newly deepened main waterway. So this new channel, which you can see in the on the right side of this, allows for more modern ships to get through. And then our next significant date in 2020, we know that that in the year of 2020, 18,800 ships with a net tonnage of 1.17 billion tons crossed through the canal with an average of 51.5 ships per day. So here, those are some facts. Now, what's happened?
And these are huge ships. These are like container ships
very
and tankers.
big. So by 2020, we're talking about like massive heavy ships here. Sorry, let me pull up. You'll have the stats for the ever given. So you'll know these are stupid amount of ships.
Is that the one with
the Empire State Building on the side?
The one that says ship stats? Okay, hold on.
Yeah, that's the one. So you can see there. So what happened? What happened in the last week? On Tuesday, there we go. Yeah. So you can see 20,000 containers carrying capacity. You can see how big this is a massive ship. Actually, we'll start with the info with this. So I'll rearrange a little bit. So this is the Ever Given. There's also a sister ship, the Ever Greet, I think, which got turned around after her sister got stuck. So this is
Giggity.
Your sister's so fat.
So she's a Golden class ship. It's owned by the Japanese shipbuilding company or ship owning subsidiary company Shoei Kisen Kaisha Limited. Excuse my pronunciation. It was built by the Imabari Shipbuilding Company, which is the quite a large shipbuilding company in Japan. It is, however, time chartered and operated by a Taiwanese container transport and shipping company called the Evergreen Marine, subsidiary of Evergreen Group, which is why the ship company is Evergreen. So for those who don't know, because I did not know, time charter is a type of charter when the vessel is hired for a specific period of time. The owner, being the Japanese company, still manages the vessel, but the charterer, which is Evergreen, they select the port and direct the vessel where to go. They also pay for the fuel that the vessel consumes, the port charges, commissions, and daily hires. And a daily hire, to the owner of the ship. So they basically timeshare the usage of the actual vessel, but they don't own it. And right now, as mentioned, it was a Taiwanese company who runs this one. Like many ships, it's registered in Panama, and it's technically managed by German ship management, Bernhard Schultz Ship Management. It is ship ownership and management is very international, it seems, and confusing as heck. I think a lot of this is to dodge taxes, is my opinion. But that is just my opinion. I haven't delved deeper than this. And then just a quick fun fact about this particular vessel. The Ever Given has, this is the second time that they managed to run amok in due to high winds. On February 9th in 2019, they struck and heavily damaged a luckily empty 25-meter long ferry boat at Blankenese, which is near the harbor of Hamburg in Germany. So there was no evidence of wrongdoing or negligence that they could be proven by the German authorities, by the captain and pilot at the time, which are separate people. And they did blame it on high winds at the time, sort of like this time. All right, so that was Ever Given. Let me know if I'm going too fast.
No, you're fine. I think
Dear
it's okay. Let me
President
check the
Biden,
chat.
this is what wind actually looks like.
Let's see, how's chat doing here? Asian drivers, am I right? Yes, very.
Pay no attention to me.
Women, Asian
Let's
drivers.
see.
Well, yeah, I'll
Yeah,
bring that
okay.
up because there was a funny, like, somebody tried to meme and troll on the internet and say it was this specific Egyptian first female captain in very similar circumstances. She wasn't the captain of this ship, but they memed and said this is what happens when you get like women driving boats and stuff. It was funny, but then the media exploded. Was like Snopes was like, no, this is entirely false. Oh my god, oh my god. It's like, get over
I have a
yourself.
question for Sora.
Yes.
Was the ship under the control of the ship's master, or was it a local pilot who was piloting the craft, who was giving helm commands?
That's interesting because there's two local guides or some. I didn't quite get their titles that were on board
basically
at the
pilots.
helm.
They're called pilots.
Those are
called
the pilots. Mhm.
Yeah, they're called pilots.
That was supposedly not, I guess, suggesting navigation to the captain and the crew. However, they do not have to follow that, according to some sources.
Right.
One
That's
or two
what a pilot
articles I
does.
read.
That's what
So-
a pilot does. That
Mhm.
well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump in here. I want
No,
Sora
no.
to get her part done, but that's important to this.
Yeah. To
That's
answer
very
your question, Sora, I think you're fine to proceed. Chat isn't screaming or anything, so I mean, proceed at your own pace.
I just wanted that as a quick background because really the next things are the more heavy, like what the heck happened. So, but yes, to answer that is the most that I've seen is that there were two local pilots, as you've called them, on board at the time of the accident.
Okay.
But what's surprising, and I have looked at very different sources and across a lot of things, so who knows what is taken from what source and repackaged, but it doesn't seem or have yet to come up against where they are at all bringing up blame towards these pilots. What I specifically saw was people saying, yeah, they were on board, but nobody has to listen to them. Kind of thing.
I have some opinions about that, but I'll share those in a minute.
Okay, so what exactly happened on Tuesday morning? So bright and early, 7:40 a.m., Tuesday, March 23rd, Ever Given, which is the name of this ship, ran aground diagonal, as you can see, across the width of the new canal. So this is in the expanded 2015 channel of the canal. At the time, officials believe part of the cause, not the full cause, was a combo of the high winds and a sandstorm that ran through. It was at 74 kilometers per hour winds, also known as 40 knots or 45.9 miles per hour. So quite heavy winds. It's not uncommon for there to be sandstorms this time of year in that area either. However, officials do still say that there's no ruling out human or technical error. Some sources say there was a blackout of power before the accident. Others say there wasn't. So that's interesting as well to note. And also, there was one post on social media that noted that the ship, Ever Given, cut in front of the cargo ship named Denver before her accident. So they jumped the queue to go in. I didn't, because of the amount of info, I didn't research that further. But if anyone's interested in looking that up, that is something that was kicking around Twitter. All right, so that's that happened Tuesday. So we get into the attempts. On Wednesday, 8 tugboats were dispatched to try and tow the vessel straight, but had little success. There's also a meme favorite little excavator that was tried to bring in to help with digging out the propeller, or the rudder, pardon me, in the back. Many shipping vessels at this point have become stuck on either ends of the canal. Some were able to be redirected through the older channel, but due to the size of modern ships, not many can take that options. And so right now we have many ships floating idle. On Thursday, the Suez Authority brought in Dutch engineering company Boskalis to help in the dredging ship, to help in the efforts to dredge the ship out. They are actually experts in dredging, which is a thing. What they need to do is to move 700,000 cubic tons of sand, is what they estimate to move. So the Dutch engineer said that this could take several days. There's an alternative method to move the vessel, which is called lightering, which means the removing of all the containers, oil, and water in the ship.
Yes.
However, this is not something that they're looking at in favor because it will take several weeks to complete due to the amount of specialized equipment.
It's extremely dangerous.
Yeah. So you're basically, if people imagine little ships coming up, offloading containers, a few containers at a time on the ships, and then the ships getting out of the way. It's not favored. On Friday, the ship's Japanese owner said that it would send an additional 10 tugboats in hopes that the ship will be reached by Saturday, which a lot of other people, including the Dutch engineering company, say that that is a bit of an unrealistic, optimistic view. Though workers have made significant progress in freeing the rudder from the sediment in the back there, it is still, the vessel is still stuck. And the last, before we sort of started, the last note is from today. About 276 vessels are trapped in the canal, with about 100 plus still en route to cross, and some of which will be redirected through the Cape, around the Cape, which is the southern tip of Africa.
We need here.
Yes. So you can see this is from Wednesday. You can see the all those little dots that you see there on either side are the coming and going ships that are on the other side.
Well, there's your problem.
And there is
all those ships are burning fuel, by the way.
Mm-hmm. They are sitting. You know. They are completely sitting idle. And if you're wondering what that looks, think of an idling car. When you idle your car on the side of the road, right?
Yeah, these cars, they'll drive them home when they start to run low on gasoline. If you take my analogy, if this problems last long enough, they'll all leave.
Well, this is a terrible problem because essentially, imagine all the big heavy things that would normally go from Asia to Europe have now stopped going from Asia to Europe. This is like a big deal, and for them to the detour is not a small one.
It's about 2 weeks.
It's not.
So it's a 2 week delay.
It's not only. It's not.
No.
Like,
sorry. Go ahead, Prospero.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it may be a 2 week delay, but that doesn't mean it will take them 2 weeks. Some of them are stuck that they can't get out of that where you see the big mess. So they have to get out of where they're stuck first, and some can't go. And it's more, but it's most people say if they were to reroute, it will take about 2 weeks to get down and around.
And they'll need fuel and supplies because they were not planning on an extra 2 weeks in this trip.
Plus.
At all. I mean, in any way.
Plus, those ships are rigged to go through the Suez Canal. A rough day in the Red Sea is 10-foot seas. A rough day on the Cape of Good Hope is 60-foot seas. And I'm not exaggerating one bit. I'm understating it. Those are the roughest, those are the largest, roughest seas on the planet. Period. Dot. End of discussion.
It's why the Suez Canal was constructed in the first place. How dangerous the Cape of Good Hope is.
I didn't know that shit.
Yeah, it's a horrible passage because of the currents.
If you start sending a bunch of ships around the Cape of Good Hope that are rigged to go through the Suez Canal, that are ruggedized only for that amount.
You're gonna lose.
You will lose one or two. And the other thing, the really festive thing that happens with some of these ships is some of the containers that they have piled on deck, on the main deck, get swept overboard. Guess what happens then? You have a load imbalance and you capsize one of these giant ships. And then lots of people get really excited. And so there is so much bad that could happen as a result of this. You have no idea. Here, is it time for me to talk about?
I
Well,
got
let's
it.
make sure. Have you? There, I think Sora's got a little bit more to go.
I'm sorry. I did not mean to jump the gun.
No.
This is fantastic. I'm actually really enjoying this. And the thing is, what frustrated me is that this is clearly one of the biggest stories out there, and it's not really getting a whole lot of airtime. So I thought, well, we can kind of do news magazine-y stuff on the weekends, so why not delve into it? So go ahead, Sora, you just keep going and let us know when you're done.
So this is the last section, which is really the meat and potatoes of the situation. It's what's the big issue, right? What you've got a funny meme-inducing ship stuck in the Suez Canal, whatever. Well, now I've found a range of numbers, so I will give you the full ranges of percentages here. But about 10 to 12% of the world trade uses the Suez Canal for goods, and 5 to 10% for the transportation of oil. And it deals approximately, according to Lloyd's List, which is a London-based shipping news journal, the Suez Canal deals in approximately $9.7 billion per day in goods. So that's what travels. And this is all in US dollars, currency, sorry.
That's billion with a B. Yes.
It's billion with a B, yes. So this closure could affect oil and gas shipments to Europe from the Middle East. Now, everything is with could, should, maybe. It will, because there will be delays. There's a quote from Toril Bossoni. She's a senior energy analyst at the International Energy Agency. So they map oil market reports and oil levels internationally and all that sort of stuff. So she says the oil regarding this blockage, the oil inventories have been coming down, but they're still relatively ample. We are not losing any oil supply, but it will tie up tankers for longer if they have to go around the Cape. So that is a big issue, which could coincide with the increasingly rising oil prices. So that is a big issue. Also, supply chains of goods will be disrupted. And with the backlog of vessels putting a strain on European ports already having a difficult time due to COVID. And also, supply chains have already been strained due to the pandemic-driven import surge by U.S. consumers. So this is coming at a terrible time due to the pandemic. Right now, you're also dealing with the positive of the global vaccine rollout means that factories and manufacturing is opening up. But the downside of it is now you've got all of these ships back on the sea full with goods, and that have been delayed for months and are now in further delay. So some fun things that are now stuck currently, specifically on the Ever Given. IKEA has over 100 containers filled with their goods and furniture items on there. And so going into Europe. So that's bad for IKEA. Caterpillar, the U.S. construction manufacturer, vehicle manufacturer, has also, there's reports they may be thinking of airlifting parts if the blockade goes on for longer. And NBC News has reported that the automotive industry is especially impacted as it was already struggling with a shortage of semiconductors, which has now been stopped dead with this blockage. And none of the supply ships can come through. Going back to Lloyd's List, here's some numbers for people who like money. The blockage costs approximately $400 million per hour in delayed goods. That's million with an M. And as of Saturday, 72 hours of blockage has been 29 billion costs, has cost companies $29 billion in delays. So other things to consider beyond the supply line and oil and all that is the incurred costs for insurance claims. A vessel the size of the Ever Given is covered up to $200 million, and they're one of hundreds of vessels in that blockade. So that's going to be interesting and a mess about what's going to happen and how that may actually change insurance policy for shipping companies coming, in the future.
Oh,
There's also some other vital items that have been blocked. There's medical equipment supplies, including PPEs, that can't get through. That was going towards the U.S. Wood pulp shipment for toilet paper manufacturing is also blocked for one company. So we may see a resurgence of the toilet paper hoarding. So not toilet paper itself.
Right. We were right
but
to
the
we were
wood
right to
pulp.
hoard toilet paper. Right?
Mm-hmm. And funnily enough, the type of coffee Nescafe uses in their instant coffee is also stuck in the Suez right now. And lastly, before I turn it over to Skep, something that some American vessels have been turning to the U.S. military that's in the area, as well as turning to Bahrain to bring aid in, is piracy. So potential piracy in two places. First, in the Suez, because of the high concentration of stranded cargo ships in close connection in a small area, there's the sudden risk of, well, they're just sitting ducks. Why not salvage some fun stuff, as well as those who are going towards Africa, which is very well known for piracy. So yeah, that is what we may be seeing in the coming few days. If they manage to dredge, it'll take a few days. They are hoping that as they're digging through and the high tide comes in, they'll get loosened more and more. However, this could be up to several weeks before anything starts moving.
So before we move on to the more of the what the hell happened and what can we do about it part, does chat have any questions? Does anybody in the stream have any questions about what Sora's said so far?
Mostly this doesn't affect us, right? Because typically the goods from Asia that we get come along the Pacific, and stuff that comes from, say, Europe goes through the Atlantic.
Okay, I have an opinion about that.
No, it's a question. It's not.
Right.
You have companies that have a business-to-business relationship. So there are some partially finished goods probably coming from the Far East that make their way through the Suez that are then processed further and imported by the United States and Canada. Okay. So it's an unknown, but I imagine that the effect is non-zero. And how much of an effect it is remains to be seen.
It's
but it
the
would be
whole
safe to
supply chain.
imagine. Yeah. No, I get that, but I would be safe to imagine that it would be much less of an impact here than it is, say, for places like Britain, Europe, the Middle East.
Oh yeah, the direct effect is not
really
there, and the routes from the Far East across the Pacific are unaffected, obviously.
Right.
And that's a whole separate transportation system. Yeah.
Well,
because I would imagine that's probably why it's not plastered everywhere, because it's not much more impactful here. Sorry, what were you saying?
Well, that, and also some people don't think this is an interesting story, but if you've studied history,
there's no blood,
politics, or anything that happens in the Suez Canal is actually interesting and important.
Yes, it is. It's very important.
But there are things on that ship. Many of them are big, heavy objects. Some of them are not big, heavy objects. So, for instance, in terms of the semiconductors, now you may have your supply chain set up to get containers of these things because it's an efficient way to get them from Europe. I can assure you that there will be people in Europe who are ordering, who are currently having things loaded on planes in North America to fly them to Europe to make up the loss. if this
Yes,
goes
that's
on for
absolutely
longer.
right. That's absolutely
And
right.
so you will see shortages of a lot of things which are high value, low weight items, which were
Yep.
only on these ships out of expediency.
Right.
That's a
Okay.
great insight, Harry.
Yeah.
Never thought of that. That
So
makes sense.
yeah, everything is sort of fungible and substitutable when
Yeah,
you're talking
yeah,
about large amounts of money. So Skep, I believe you have the floor.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you, Sora. What a great job. I mean, applause,
Wonderful.
jazz hands for Sora. Seriously, thank you so much for
everybody snap. No, that
Yeah,
really
snap,
was
snap.
Thank
that
you.
really was excellent. That was an
that was
excellent
really
job.
it makes me so happy. You did a really great job.
Yes,
Of it.
I was
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
intentionally avoiding trying to, fudge through the stuff myself, and just because I knew you were going to cover it today, I wanted to hear a more, filtered down explanation of the things.
Okay, so here is what the way that I thought I would talk about this a little bit is from the point of view of what happened on the bridge. And here's kind of what I expect probably happened on the bridge. Guy's getting ready to go through the canal. Tug comes up. He's got his two pilots on there. The pilots come aboard. And this is when we used to sail out of San Francisco Bay. And to get us out of the bay, we would have a pilot come aboard. And he'd be on one of the tugs. I was on a tanker. It was a pretty big ship, about 400 feet long. And we would have tugs to, push us out into the channel, and we'd be underway. But we would have a pilot on board to keep us in the right channels to make our way safely out of San Francisco Bay, which actually has some very, very rough water just outside the Golden Gate Bridge. So that's what they were doing here, and everything was going along fine. So the two pilots came aboard and says, "We got this. We do this all the time. We've got another job this afternoon. We'll get you through the canal, and you'll be on your way, and we'll have our afternoon job." And what we don't know what went wrong to where this happened. The way that it's situated, it looks as though somebody just wasn't paying attention, and there was a starboard drift. That looks to be what happened. That it drifted to starboard, and when that happens, you have a stern swing that corresponds to your bow drift. Because you're think about the needle on a compass. That's the way a ship turns, and so you have this big wedge essentially that suddenly plows in to the soft mud on the bow, and then the stern, the backside, goes into the mud over there, and it buries their rudder, and probably their screw. I don't know if it's single screw. I imagine it's single or twin screw, but at this point it doesn't matter. It might matter a little bit, but anyway. So with his rudder buried, he can't do anything directionally to help himself. He's at the mercy of the tugs. And so he says, "Hey, we're in the mud. Can you haul us out?" And the tugs try, and they say, "Nope, we can't." And by this time, he has contacted Mom, his headquarters, and says, "We're stuck in the mud and we're blocking the Suez Canal. Help."
Nightmare. Can you imagine?
So here's what happens. Home Office says, "Get the adults out there and help this asshole." Okay. And so another tug comes up, and there's like 5 guys on here. And these guys are the grown-ups. These guys are the ones. One of them is from a Dutch company who runs salvage things. Another guy is a super pilot, the master of all pilots, who knows every inch of mud bottom in that area. They're all kinds of guys. And the ship's master and actually his whole crew are reduced almost to spectators on the bridge. The adults are doing things, suggesting things. There's a big chart up of things they've tried, things they're going to try, what they think is happening, who's coming in when to help with what piece, and all that kind of stuff. So that's the hell that is that ship's bridge right now. And man, I would not want to be there. I'll tell you that, because I've been on a ship's bridge when it's tense, and there's no tension quite like it when bad things are happening. So so that's what's going on there. How they got into this, here's what they were steaming, I guess, early in the morning. Is that right, Sora?
The first when they
went around, it was
7:40 a.m.
Okay, and see, here's an interesting thing. This is something that happens when the sun comes up. The winds come up. That's a saying that you learn early on in your piloting career in learning to drive ships. When the sun comes up, the wind comes up. And so they may have been at an attitude that was okay prior to the sun coming up. The sun comes up, there's more energy in the air, the wind comes up, and all of a sudden they got a push that they couldn't counteract in time for, and that's what slid them into the mud. I suspect something like that is what happened. And ships like this, they have a big sail area. That's actually the technical term for it, is sail area. And the sail area is the side of the ship, okay? And so the wind pushes against that side of the ship, plus it has the height of the containers that are stacked like 6 or 7 deep on the main deck, and that adds to the sail area. So that's all pushable by the wind, and the wind has a tremendous amount of power to even move a ship like this, and it can move it more than the rudder can steer for it. And when that happens, this kind of thing is the result. That's what I suspect, that they got into a situation where the ship was not controllable on account of the wind, and it's probably not anybody in particular's fault. Sometimes this stuff happens. I don't think this is sound to me like what happened with the Exxon Valdez, where the guy was half drunk and he was in his cabin. He should have been on the bridge watching what was going on. I don't think it doesn't sound like it's anything like that, but obviously I could be wrong. I generally am. Anyway, so then you get down to what can you do about this kind of thing. Now, I don't know that much about this. I actually did a little bit of digging, went to a couple of research and salvage sites and stuff like that. And evidently they have ships that have the capability of turning the bottom under the ship, actually kind of liquefying the bottom that this thing is stuck in. And I guess that's what Sora was talking about. That's what you were talking about. Moving those, zillions of cubic feet of mud to get enough of it freed to where it'll swing back out. And I'm sure that they have, I guarantee you, they have enough tugs to overcome any amount of wind that can be reasonably foreseen. And that might be the one thing that would be critical, was that they were undermanned with respect to attendant tugs. They may have had 1 or 2 tugs thinking, hey, we got this. And the thing got out of control from the wind. The tugs couldn't help it fast enough, and that's why it went fast into the mud on the starboard side. So those are the things that I was thinking about. Now, one of the reasons, there are many reasons they don't want to unload this thing manually to lighten it, but that is one of the things that they can do. The first thing that they'll try and do is basically pump all the fuel out and pray that's enough, because that's the easiest thing to do. If that doesn't work, they'll actually pump some of the fuel back on board. Then they will start taking the containers off 2 at a time. Why 2 at a time? Because it's essentially to keep it balanced. Mm-hmm. If you unbalance the ship, it'll either capsize, or think about taking a crescent roll in your hands and just twisting it until it broke. A ship will do that from the weight of the things that are on the deck. Okay. And so that's a bad thing. They don't want that to happen. They don't want their ship to be pulled apart like a crescent roll. That would make them mad. So they will avoid that by very carefully removing the containers. And that is a very expensive process, and the insurance company does not want to do that. They will spend a lot of effort before they resort to that. But that will almost guaranteed work to lighten the ship. That will lighten the ship so much it will float like a cork, and that'll get it out. And then they'll just tow it out.
No.
Anyway, just
Okay.
some
Yeah, because obviously with all the additional
some uninformed
transportation they would
opinions.
need, that would be grossly expensive.
Mhm.
Just some uninformed opinions. That's about all I had, Harry.
Well, some semi-informed opinions at the very
Semi-informed,
least. No,
yeah. It's just, but they
no,
are
I
opinions.
appreciate
and
it.
That's all.
I mean, I do think this is a really interesting story, and
Yeah.
if they don't get this thing dislodged soon, we're going to be hearing a lot more about it. But you heard about it here first, folks.
Yeah.
We have another happy, fun topic, which is,
Oh, boy.
let's see, what were we going to talk about? We are going to talk about Discord.
Yay.
Yay, because everybody loves
Something
Discord, right?
Everybody's familiar with in today's day and age.
Yeah, and actually, I've asked, since I'm feeling a little under the weather, I was actually asking Functional, because I know he's really interested in this particular topic. So, would you like to tell us a little more about why we're screwed and everything's about to suck?
Well, it's actually not that bad just as yet. So as most people are probably familiar enough with Discord by now, it's everywhere. It's skyrocketed as the big platform right now. And they're, for all intents and purposes, independent. And what started as sort of a people familiar with the matter, Wall Street Journal article, has been reported on by several outlets, and I'd like to read a little bit from this Verge article first of all to give us a little bit of background and more information on it. So, why Microsoft wants Discord. Microsoft is reportedly having discussions with Discord to buy the communications app. The Wall Street Journal reports that Microsoft is in quote-unquote exclusive talks to acquire Discord, and a deal that could close next month. It's the latest acquisition target for Microsoft after the company failed to acquire TikTok and Pinterest recently. While all three are very different services, they share one common element: community. And that is the big money these days, is people's information and their interaction and their eyeballs. It's worth more than gold. And we see that with these platforms like TikTok, Pinterest, Facebook, YouTube's, everything. Like, that's what's generating the revenue for these companies. And when something is so well established as a Discord that's independent, that's a big juicy burger that a giant like Microsoft would be extremely happy to get, because Microsoft is willing to spend big on these services because outside of Xbox, it doesn't have a huge consumer-facing community like Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple do. Microsoft has watched Google acquire YouTube, and that's turned into the world's biggest video platform. Amazon bought Twitch to dominate streaming. Facebook got Instagram and WhatsApp to control the communication and how people socialize online. And Apple, of course, has its App Store. So Microsoft, yeah, they're still a mega giant in the tech world, but they don't have the new tech yet under their belt.
May I provide a little context briefly? Just cutting in for a second. So Microsoft does know how to do something like, the chat feature of Discord, not particularly complicated. Uploading digital images or sound files, that type of thing, that's easy. Things like Microsoft Teams do that in a very straightforward way. Mm-hmm. It's actually very difficult to do real-time video. And since Discord doesn't really seem to have a profit model, because I don't know how many people that have Nitro. It's not a very large number. So other than that, where do they actually get the money from people? Because doing video real time is really expensive. Now, on a given Discord server, there may be, 4 or 5 people playing games. All 4 of them are streaming video live so that, a handful of people can actually take a look at it. Compared to something like Twitch, this is actually a very expensive proposition. And in light of the fact that they don't really have a model for being profitable that makes any kind of sense, one has to wonder, what does Microsoft hope to get out of this other than just the list of people? Like, hey,
Well,
gamers, hey, kids, come buy our Xbox, that kind of thing.
Right. I mean, it did start off as basically just a voice communications application for gamers. And it has since evolved into the all-encompassing thing, especially they do really well with, like you said, their video, live video chat features. And the thing is, I can't think of a single person that doesn't have some sort of interaction with Discord, whether it be huge companies like Games Workshop or like Bethesda to YouTubers and other streamers, these people who are on these apps like Twitch or WhatsApp or Instagram, and those people generally do pay for Nitro because it's a part of their marketing budget to have this community, this place where people can. Now, you and I, we don't really have Nitro, but we might have our own personal Discords for people to just come and hang out and talk and chat and do all this personal stuff. So you're right, the scale of it is way off because there's a lot more individual users than there are companies, but I wouldn't sell it short that they do make quite a bit of money from their more premium services like Nitro.
Haven't they seen quite an enormous growth in use of the platform over the last couple of years?
Especially because of COVID.
Because of the pandemic. Because what they did very nimbly is see to it that they could handle 100 people on a phone chat.
Yep.
A Discord chat. Basically like a giant conference call.
Exactly.
Where Zoom charges for what, over 60? They didn't. And I mean, it was a place because it's very easy to get to. I mean, the weird thing is Microsoft purchased Skype, right? I mean, or Skype was a Microsoft product. They fucked that in.
Microsoft purchased Skype.
Yeah, they bought it and they fucked it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big concerns where a lot of people who are in the know are kind of looking at this going, no, please don't.
touch.
Well, what was that streaming thing that they got? And they got, what's his face to come over off of Twitch to hoot and holler.
You're talking about Ninja.
Ninja to, I don't remember the,
I don't remember
what's
the name
of
of
the
it.
streaming company.
Yeah.
Mixer.
Mixer,
thank you.
And that shit the bed. So Microsoft...
that one was a little bit different. The CEO did some shit he wasn't supposed to, and they just decided to fold it after that because they couldn't do anything anymore.
Yeah, but how many people did they get besides Ninja? They didn't pull the whole community over at all.
They didn't, but they still got pretty good numbers.
What they did is they took a big fish out of a medium-sized pond and left the other little fishies, with more access to viewers.
And to give you
I mean, they've kind of broken the last two toys they bought.
Yeah. And to give you an idea of a dollar figure attached to Discord's revenue, in 2016, 5 million. In 2019, 45 million. And as of last year, in 2020, 130 million. They saw a 300% growth in 1 year.
Yeah,
and that's why Microsoft is now, again, this is rumor, this is hearsay, is offering like somewhere in the ballpark of 10 billion to acquire the proprietary rights, the community, everything.
Well, also, apparently, Microsoft's got a huge hate boner for Google.
Yeah.
They're jealous of them. Basically, we want our own place where people talk.
And this is from a company whose total funding and its total operation has only been just under 380 million since its founding in 2015.
Yeah, they've done
so 6
good.
years they've spent, but their money's been just like they've done it right.
really well, and the pandemic was a huge
for a company that only
assist.
has about 580 employees. That's incredible.
Yeah, And they also
And that-
might go public instead of letting Microsoft.
That's what I was going to touch on next, was what the CEOs of Discord have said previously before the epidemic, that I recall reading, but I couldn't quite find again. So I apologize. This is just me regurgitating something I read, so take it with a heavy grain of salt. But they were on record and saying that they didn't want to sell the company, that they did want to go public, and that there were some talks of looking for investment and diversification within Discord. And from what I know of, the gaming community and its relationship to Microsoft being Xbox, their communications tool within Xbox Live is pure hot garbage. So if they could somehow find a way to get Microsoft to invest in a Discord app for the Microsoft Xbox Live platform, that would be a huge win-win for both. And Discord wouldn't have to, the CEOs wouldn't have to give up their company to Microsoft. But at the same time, somebody's shoveling 10 billion into my face. I'm kind of going,
Yeah.
do I take that money or do I make that money over the next 20 years?
And do you think Microsoft wants to just settle for that lovely little communication thing for Xbox, or whether they want the whole shebang?
They want the whole shebang for sure. And that's what could cause a lot of rift in these negotiations. But again, this is a lot of hearsay, a lot of conjecture, a lot of I urge people not to believe all of this, because it's just a lot of he said, she said kind of stuff.
Let's let Serenity go. I want in after her. So.
Well, it's real quick. This is just a point of info.
Take your time.
Over a million users as of June 30th, 2020 have Nitro.
Wow.
And that's of their concurrent user base of 130 million as of March 2021.
Actually, their new numbers are saying it's close to 300 million.
I believe that, but I think it was due to activity they made a cutoff point. But it's got a lot of people on the platform.
Yeah. It's the thing is that it's registered number users, so it's like it can be anywhere from 45 million to 300 million. But we're gonna give them the benefit of the doubt.
It's huge.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing of like, I can honestly see with how Microsoft's past has been, at least on the Xbox part of things, I can actually see if they somehow get a back end deal or something like that, they would actually maybe allow Discord to be on their system without actually owning them. It's going to depend, because it's like anything. I think these articles have been dumped just this way they can test the waters and see what happens, see if their stock possibility has being higher if they go public. I feel like it's a manipulation, but sorry, Harry, go on.
No. I'm actually happy to hear from you about this one. So here's the thing. So you said that their capitalization, their market, basically the amount of money that had been invested to start them was $390 million. Is that what you said?
379.3 total funding since their inception in 2015.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so and since 2015, only recently have they broken the triple digits on revenue, not on profit. Correct. Okay. Now, do we have an idea of how many people?
In 2018, 150 million of that total funding was just in the end of December of 2018.
Right. So I'm fairly sure what we're looking at is multiple venture capital firms putting money into this thing in exchange for equity shares. Mm-hmm. Now, venture capital firms, unless we're talking about what are called angel investors, which is a topic for another time, they do not give money to people to not make money. Yeah. So if it turns out that, yes, those revenue numbers are actually pretty good, but that's not the same thing as profit. And just sort of back of the envelope, it sounds to me like they have not actually recovered all the money that's been put in yet. They are not profitable from the point of view of the investors. Fair statement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. So yes, that's a really great revenue growth, but unless the investors are of the, yes, we want to own a piece of this thing and build it up, as opposed to, it would be really great if a huge company came in and just started swinging their genitals around and gave us a ton of money. that's a lot of companies like this are basically built to do that. Now, I don't know anybody who works for Discord, but it would not surprise me in the least if a lot of very talented people worked long hours in exchange for not nearly as much money as they could make somewhere else in exchange for equity shares. So there might be a lot of new freshly minted multimillionaires in the 30-ish year old group coming along.
Harry, this might be relevant. I just looked up some of the financial data actually from Discord. It in 2020, I think somebody said it generated, and that's what I have, is it generated $130 million in revenue in
Up
2020.
45.
Pardon me?
Up 45 from the previous year.
No, it was up 188% from the previous year. Almost all of Discord's revenue comes from its Nitro, its premium enhancement bundle. Discord has over 140 million active monthly users and 300 million registered accounts. So I think that's the two statistics you guys were talking about. And in 2021, it is valued at $7 billion, and that has doubled its value from the year before.
Yeah,
that's outstanding.
Keyword being value there.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter until somebody's willing to pay for it. But
No.
That's basically what
because we've mentioned
they're privately owned, and that's what, for the purpose of the stock valuation and everything, that's what they've come up with as the number for the current value.
Yeah.
And that's no doubt based on the basic rules of thumb for revenue and expenses and that sort of thing.
But let me say this about that. I don't think there's any way that there's $7 billion in their capital account. I'll bet their capital account is less than 50 million.
Oh, that has nothing to do with the value of their capital account. It's what they think their market capitalization is worth, but they're not publicly traded, so it's all just a fiction from the auditors.
That's my point. Is since they are not publicly traded, everything what they value them on is cost to acquire. And that's what I think that valuation is coming from. It's not coming from, assets minus liabilities equals what's left over for the stockholders. That means basics of accounting, right? And so there is no way there's $7 billion based on the revenue coming from Nitro. There's no way there's $7 billion assets minus liabilities. So when they say it's valued at $7 billion, I believe that is being valued as we will sell the company for that.
Oh, clearly, because if you basically there's, as Skep has pointed out, there's a number of ways this is done. You can just look at sales, for instance, and you can say in a particular sector you assume a certain % return on your investment. You look at the revenue, you extrapolate backwards, and you come up with a sort of an idea of what it's actually worth, because somebody would buy it and get X % return on that investment. So that's not an unreasonable thing to do, right? You say in a particular sector you can do that. Now, this is not just a funny money number that doesn't matter, because to all of the people who own stock in this company, that number matters a lot. Because, for instance, suppose it's been 5 years, these people are probably fully vested, and a number of them may have been granted stock options. If they quit and go to work for some other company right now, and they're saying that the value of this company on paper is $7 billion, and they own 0.1% of it, and they've got it set so that they're not allowed to take that stock with them, it has to be purchased back by the company, they get paid for that.
Exactly.
So you don't want that number to be artificially high, because it means that when people leave, if they're vested, you got to actually give them money for their percentage of the business. So it can't just be like, well, look at this, my company's worth this much money and I have this much stock. Because there are actually real world ramifications in terms of like taxes on options and unrealized gains and all this other stuff that ends up happening. But I can assure you that if they've put $380 million into this thing, and there's a $10 billion paycheck, obviously minus liabilities and things that they have to deal with, the investors are probably pretty happy with that. And I'm guessing a lot of the key people would be happy. Now, as part of this sale, a lot of those people who are the bright people who've made all this work are going to be required to stay on, because what they'll probably do is get an equivalent amount of Microsoft stock, and they'll be required to stay on for a period of some number of years.
It'll be
typically 2 or
144
3.
stock. It'll be 144
Yeah, and they
stock.
will,
It'll be
and
2-year
they will
stock.
not. Right, they will not be able to leave immediately to get their ultimate payday. And that's not necessarily unfair either. But yeah, there's a lot of money that's going to go on. There's going to be a lot of new millionaires. Yeah, should be fun. But if we talk about, well, what does this mean to us, to those of us here who use Discord? If anybody here has been on Count Dankula's old server, you realize that with the mentality that we have now, there are going to be people like the people that the Wall Street Journal who are going to call up Microsoft and say, why is there all this terrible imagery being hosted on your service?
Right.
And there's going to be some amount of crackdown.
And Microshaft
And it's
is
going
the
to
type
be
of company
unpleasant.
to
Well, I
capitulate.
think there'll be one other major change, and stand by for this.
Yeah.
It's not going to be free anymore, and they will take the hit on people leaving. They won't care if they keep one person in 10 if they can get 10% to pay a fee.
In all seriousness, what they'll probably do, considering Discord sells games through their own system, they'll probably put it in with Xbox Game Pass. So if you already have Game Pass, you're already paying for Discord, Game Pass
You'll
for the PC, and the console. There's the word I was looking for.
You'll also have
saying,
ads on your Discord servers.
Microsoft likes to make money by the subscription model. They always have.
Well, I can honestly
And
say,
it-
at least
it's-
with Game Pass, you don't have ads. So,
No, but I'm saying
But
on
it's still a
Discord, if
subscription
it
model.
was.
yeah, sorry, Sam.
Once we start talking about gaming, people get very excited.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just,
what
it's just this corner of the universe that we're in.
But if it
there's
gets to a point that the gamers don't want to use the platform anymore, they'll migrate to a new platform, and the cycle will start over again. It started with TeamSpeak, and then moved on to Ventrilo, and now Discord. So I'm throwing a lot of names that only gamers really understand, and that's fine, because it's the cycle of things, the ebb and flow of creation and destruction.
So, Skep, I don't know if you've noticed, if you've been looking at the chat, but there's a discussion going on about Bill Gates versus Steve Jobs right now. We really do need to set aside some weekend, and share our stories about the founding of Microsoft and the PC and all that sort of stuff. Because I feel like people do not know the untold truth about this.
Some people might find that discussion interesting, and I knew Steve Ballmer before he was a name. I mean, when he would still return my phone calls, I knew who was the guy who I can't believe I'm so old I forgot his name. The guy who invented DBase when he was at JPL. I used to talk with him on the phone.
Well, just a
Ballmer.
teaser, folks. I mean,
People
Skep
like
and
that.
I, we really do need to have that conversation, because I think we might change a few minds that are in chat right now, having a chat.
Yeah.
But that's just a little teaser, folks. Anyway, anything else on the downfall of Discord and how it's all going to be really annoying? I mean, it's hard for me to be optimistic hearing about this, because I kind of feel like I know what's going to happen. It's not a question of, what is the old joke? Somebody saying I would never basically turn tricks. I wouldn't be a hooker or a prostitute. And then you get into the whole negotiation thing, and like, oh, well, would you do it for $10 million? Well, yeah, for $10 million. Oh, well, we're just arguing about money then. You are a prostitute. You're just trying to decide, what your price is. And there is a price, and if they meet it, I'm fairly sure Microsoft will gobble up Discord and, not even feel it. And I, as a Microsoft shareholder, I'm not necessarily against this plan. But as a person who uses Discord, I'm not happy about it at all.
Who was the English playwright who made that conversation? Well, I know what you are, madam.
Was it Shaw?
Yeah, it was George Bernard Shaw. That's who it was.
I think it was Shaw.
Yeah, it was George Bernard Shaw.
Yeah, I like Shaw, and I mentioned this to some friends of mine, and they said, of course you like Shaw. He's long and wordy, just like you.
He's brilliant like you, maybe.
Do you want to wrap this? You want to wrap tonight up and say our goodbyes to everybody? Is there more that we need to talk about the Discord thing? I think because we're kind of in a sit back and wait pattern now.
Yeah, basically, we just got to wait until the actual facts come out and statements start getting released by one or both sides.
Yeah, and I'm not really inclined to start a new article at this point, unless we want to. Yeah, no, let's just not. Let's just stop. I'm tired and I feel like crap, and I actually think now's a good time to say goodbye to everybody. But does anybody have any parting thoughts they'd like to give?
I do. So, I checked out a new little mini-series on Amazon. It's an animated superhero show based on a comic book called Invincible. And at first, there was a lot of groaning because there was social justice warrior kind of rhetoric. And something that really came to mind was there was this interaction where the main character and his love interest are having a study date. And he brings up a couple of textbooks that he wants to cover, one of them being Ta-Nehisi Coates. And that made me go, ugh, like I almost retched in my seat. But then, flash forward to the end of the scene, and he's there with the Nick Fury type character, the government liaison to the superheroes type leader, and he makes the comment, Jesus, what do they teach you kids in school? And I just thought, like, oh, wow, is that like the subtle deconstruction of these stupid social justice sort of things going on in society? Was this intentional? Because the rest of the show was deliciously violent, and I think people should check it out.
Cool.
Sorry if I was being a little too much Shaw there.
No. Knock yourself out. It's fine.
I
It's
do
fine if
I do
somebody else
have
is long and wordy.
I do have a quote.
Please
to
go
end
ahead.
on. Success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose. Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. Life is not fair. Get used to it. The author of that quote, Bill Gates.
And wear a fucking helmet.
Serenity, do you have anything for us tonight?
Nothing. Just be safe out there.
Don't-
That's all I got.
Don't open a magic monster producing portal when you're stuck in a dungeon.
Don't be stupid in D&D.
Don't be stupid in D&D because you might get reincarnated as a hobbit with a bow. It just happens,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or always be prepared. Have a rolled up newspaper to beat the sorcerer in the face when they decide they're going to do something stupid. It's like, no.
Be well, Harry. Be well, Harry.
Oh yeah. I just need some sleep. And Sora, thank you so damn much for doing such
Yay,
a
Sora.
fantastic job.
Cheers.
You exceeded the mission brief by a lot.
Yes, you did.
Thank
And
you.
I really like what you put together. That was fantastic.
I hope the clapping wasn't triggering.
I might cry later.
Just a little tear, a little unicorn tear. And Prospero, do you have anything for us tonight?
No, I'm good.
No.
I've had headphones
Well-
on for 5 hours today.
Oh,
Oh no.
Yeah.
Just screamed out.
She's getting that Mike Tyson cauliflower ear.
She's like, that's it. I'm done. I'm out.
Well, thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. It has been it's been my pleasure, and I think our pleasure to have you as our guests. I'm very happy with the way tonight's stream went, and
Yep.
yeah, who knows what next week will bring. At least next time I'll hopefully hit go live at the right time, and we won't have to do the entry opening twice.
It made it interesting, Harry. That's all that matters.
Yeah, it was good. We'll just keep doing this until we get it right. Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Bye.